yeah, whatever. So we're having a discussion, and that discussion is just going and going. So please go check out the previous parts to gauge your bearings, you guys. Everything is just whatever in this 21st century. I literally don't care about anything. I'm going home. That's like a clarity. It's by home I mean the rapture. Like, that's happening. I'm going home, and when I'm there, you're gonna be like, oh snap, I was singing Billie Jean. I was gonna be, the kid is not my son. Ooh, there goes the random lack of decorum. I have lost all of my genteel, and I don't care. I'm going home, guys, because nothing matters anymore. Nothing really matters. Please go check out the previous part to gauge your bearings. The last part I ended by explaining that parents have literally all throughout the ages, following having read from Plato of which had this like to say that kids are frankly unsustainable to be kept in this state because they're just destroying. They're riotous, they're moody, and they're full of disbehavior, and there's nothing we can do tomorrow. For these randos, so let's just shut the earth already, let's close it, let's seal the deal, let us close the centuries, because there is literally nothing left. Plato said that in like the 4th century BC or something, and it's still out here rolling this concern. So one might be like, crabs, like there's no difference, like it's been intense all this time, don't make it deep. And I'm like, I'm sorry, no, it is deep. You know why? Because individuals on the planet have always delegated parenting. Not always, sorry, for many generations. Individuals, ever since organized religion, and ever since organized education, ever since all systems that was structured, systems that were erected for the better functioning of the human race, some of which I will give kudos to, because who does not love trade and industry? Who? All right, these systems that have given us all routines that are predictable from the time we come out of our mother's wombs, that we're going to go to school for a couple of years, and then after that we're going to work some jobs for a couple of hours in a day, go home, watch some TV, read a newspaper, sleep, and then do the same thing pretty much for the rest of your life on a loop. That whole thing has given the human race and routine. And you know what? Routine is important. You can't hate it, or you can't just throw it under the bus and say whatever rubbish nonsense. Otherwise we would not have thrived like this. We would not have amassed for ourselves all of these billions of people on the planet. We would not have prospered as a human race to be fruitful and multiply. So really we did need that kind of burgeoning of the human race, the growth in numbers. That was important. That was God's plan all along. He wanted to gather for himself a people for his own possession. But with every innovation awarded humankind by God to thrive on the earth, there are all these like infiltrations of wickedness that always come in. There are all these infiltrations of insensitivity that always creep their way into this ecosystem, however anomalous they might be. And so people manage to find a way to be diabolical when something is under normal circumstances quite good. There's always these exploiters, there's always these extreme users and abusers of a system, there's always these people who are always trying to find loopholes in a system, and so they really mess it up. And when you create a system for people to live in, I'm so distracted, yes, like it, when you find a system for people to live in, individuals will then take for granted things like, if at all people are reliant on a system and you threaten some with extraction from the system, they then can be controlled with the system. If at all that system is one that is absolutely needed for them to get through. So they get us addicted to a structure, routine. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then politicize it and extract or humiliate certain people out of this ecosystem purely because they don't obey a narrative. And so that's how you socially condition a mindset, a rhetoric, groupthink. That's where it comes in, where most of the people belong to the system, and it is comfortable, it is routine, it's what works. And then they extract people if they don't want to obey certain changes in ideology. And that's when everything just starts to fall apart and crack. And that is the difference between 4th century BC Plato days and now. We have had all these industrial revolutions all these years down the line, thanks to the erection of these systems that have kept us going and going and going. Trade, industry, education, religion that is organized, right? Going to church on a particular day, have fellowshipping with certain people in order that you might feel like you're part of a group. Yeah, things that historically used to be done very individually in families that were nuclear, kept together by, I guess, the patriarch they're in, and maybe the village that had like perhaps like a one particular mindset, like a chief, or a king that had one particular mindset, and so this sort of kind of filtered down into individual families on the ground, and everybody was maintained in a particular stead. When you've got all these different opinions all across society, like as in everybody has a different idea as to what is right or wrong, the whole chieftaincy hierarchy is no longer sustainable. It is no longer you can't tell me what to believe, you can't tell me what to think, because I don't inherently believe in what you believe. And then when you give people a right and a freedom to basically believe in what it is that they believe in, there then are all these leg rooms awarded people to believe what they want to believe, insofar as, they don't hurt anybody while they're doing that. Believe what you want to believe insofar as you don't hurt anybody, because now we are no longer members of a tribe, we are no longer members of a kingdom, we are now members of a democracy. And when then you are members of a democracy, the disquieting thing about that is that in the democratic country that you live in, there literally at any given time might be millions of differing opinions in the streets, apart, different from yours and different from your children's, and you can't make war with them successfully without appearing like a bigot, without appearing like a dogmatic buffoon, without appearing intolerant. And so therefore you just gotta mum yourself, shut up, and take in your stride that your opinions are different insofar as that difference is is out there and not inside your households. And for years, we have somehow prospered to perhaps rear children in individual households to believe in those individual households' ideologies at the expense of the world when they go out there, so that they can always basically stand for something that they might not fall for everything, seeing as there are all these different ideologies that are competing with one another in the world. But then in a world where parents are delegating that responsibility to teach ideology to children, to teachers, we are dealing with just a cesspool of confusion. It is cantankerous and everything goes. Do what thou wilt, for that is the whole of the law. And so when you give your child over to a system to be taught, do you understand? That is a mix masala of all of these ideologies, and you don't put your foot down in your household, your kid is gone. Your kid is gone. Gone. But you see, we're growing up in a society where parents themselves were just thrown. They were the kids that are now parents, and they were thrown into ideologies. And they are now far more loose than their parents ever could be. Parents have always thrown their children to the system as a babysitter. Like, that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. It is not easy to raise a child. Okay, I wish I had autonomy. No, I do have autonomy to a certain extent, but what I wanted to say was my own place. I just, my train of thought is always so distracted by so much activity around me, where it is that I stay, and I'm always so paranoid and insecure about speaking my mind without losing my bearings, because I'm concerned for being eavesdropped on. I hate my life, but nonetheless, we continue anyway to speak that which we ought speak. What in the world under heaven do I need to do over here? I forgot what I used. How could I forget? How could? Nah, that was the one that I used. Sorry, I can't multitask. Y'all guys know that that's like a whole thing. Look, parents have always delegated. Like, in my generation and generations prior to that, systems, societies are not new. They have not been innovated just day before yesterday. They've been around for centuries. And whatever society it is that your child is, and these societies, whatever society, let me just finish that sentence. Whatever society your child has been raised in, they will likely follow suit, that they might be part of a whole and not be... Human beings are born with a desire for belonging, guys. And so they won't naturally just gravitate away from being part of the grain if at all it is in their power to do so. They won't choose to be ostracized. They will choose to be popular. They will choose to be loved, embraced, accepted. So they will more than likely always accept societal norms as their own. They will take them. Whether or not they make sense is irrelevant, because it's about fitting in. And that fitting in thing was at some point okay. Because societies were sober, the world was sober, people were sober. The world was not the crazy menace that it is today. But then it has become a menace, hasn't it? That is proliferating only certain agendas, using the systems that we have all come to rely on so violently. And these systems are becoming increasingly pagan, hostile to the gospel. They're becoming increasingly unfriendly to those who maintain dogmas as their ideologies. That's what's good. Religious dogma is becoming increasingly unpopular. Yeah. So Christian Judeo mindset is increasingly getting squeezed out of society, and that's problematic, because literally there's only one way to heaven. I'm not trying to go and bite anybody's toes off in offending them, but bottom line is the gospel is kind of offensive. So long story short, I changed my mind. I am trying to offend you. There's no other way, a name under heaven by which men must be saved. That name is Jesus Christ. And so if you try and take Christianity out of the earth, you're literally condemning an entire planet to hellfire. And you're also making it very hard for those who are trying to evangelize anyone that wants to be evangelized for God. You're making it really hard for people to make a choice for Christ by making Christianity the ostracized norm. You are making Christianity the thing that gets you banished from a society, from a civilization, the thing that gets you kicked out. It used to be the immoral woman that got kicked out of a village. It used to be the wayward kid that was ostracized and kept out of the playing circle with other children. But now it is the right people. Wrong is called right. Right is called wrong. Good is evil. Evil is good. You get my point? Yeah. And if you're kicking out religion, especially Christianity, out from like society, you're literally condemning children. And not only are you condemning them, but you're making it really hard for those that would have chosen redemption to choose redemption, because it's just so hard to be a Christian. Like, I'll give you an example. Apparently there are a whole bunch of Palestinians that want an alternative to Islam there in Gaza because they find it suffocating. It has brought war onto their doorsteps. In the name of Allah, they disrupted a peace that wasn't broken, but they try to fix it. And now Israel has gone to war with them, and they're being displaced. They're being sent to the north of the country, or of the strip. It's just problematic for them, and they're looking for an alternative to, what do you call this, to Islam, right? And this one evangelist guy was trying to give them the gospel as a result of realizing that these people are looking for an alternative to Islam. So thank God they're not abandoning God altogether. They're not becoming atheistic because they are embittered by what Allah did to them. They are like, God does definitely exist, but I need something other than Islam. I need an alternative. And so there's this like one evangelist Oki that is trying to reach them for Jesus. And these people are like, look, I would take Christianity. I would, because I have seen how well it works in Western nations. I've seen the peace they have there. I have seen it. But first, I need to be guaranteed safety to turn to Christ. As soon as it's safe enough for me to turn to Christianity, I'll consider it. What I'm trying to explain to you guys is that when you severely disincentivize turning to Jesus in any given geographical location, you make it hard for people to choose the only way that they have to life. You make it very hard for people to choose Jesus. So when you intensify the difficulty to avoid hellfire, what in the world and the heaven must be done with you though? Like, what do we need to do? Like, what do we need to do with you? Hey? You're like out just standing in front of the doors of heaven, preventing people from coming in because you make it hard for them to live when they choose heaven. You make it worse and worse. Yeah, that's what's good. And with societies becoming increasingly nihilistic, yeah, they are disincentivizing exhausted people that want God, just insofar as if I choose him, please, can I just live? Why can't we all just get along? Can I just go to school, come back? Can I just go to work and come back? Can I just sleep in my bed at night without imagining that somebody's gonna drop a Molotov cocktail into my bedroom because I just so happen to have turned, from whatever it is that I was doing to Christ? Like, can I just be left alone? And if at all they continue, they are increasingly disincentivizing people from turning to Jesus by creating a pagan society that frowns on Christian Judeo principles. You are creating condemned souls that might have responded to Christ if your societies weren't so messed up. So now, how do you strengthen the heart of a child growing up in a society that hates Jesus? Ain't no better comfort in the life of a child than their mama and their dad. Literally. There is power in parents that they just don't understand. They've got power to shield some kids. Like, they've got power to make children feel like it's literally not that bad. It can't be that intense. Like, yeah. Like, parents have been given power by God to cause all of the blows coming from the outside world to pale and appear like nothing, just a breeze in the face of a child that would have come back home wet with sorrow because they were bullied. And if, however, they've got this like buffering effect, this shock absorber at home, it's enough to keep this kid standing firm on what they believe. However, if your parents in and of themselves were tossed to and from by every wind of societal doctrine, there's nothing that can be done for your babies. Like, parents have been for a minute. They've been doing it. I frankly, personally, in and of myself, can vouch for this because it happened with me. They've been delegating their responsibility to rear children to teachers. They've been delegating it to teachers. Do you understand? For the longest time. But there was a time historically, that's what I'm getting at, where there was no organized systemic education. There was a time when children from naught all the way up until whatever age, they left their mothers and fathers' houses to go and marry other people, to go and marry men and women out there. They were taught everything they know by their mothers, their fathers, and their older brothers and sisters. They were taught inside the house. And so ideologies tended to sort of kind of be kept in a bunch in that vacuum. It was only when organized schooling came on board that now parents felt like, this is exhausting. I'm tired. Like, it's rough to be a mom. As soon as a baby is born, it's just so much work. Like, all these people all over the show, I would know, that are very broody. They long for a child. But a lot of women, as soon as the baby has been born, there's so much exhaustion that comes with it. There's all that tending to this human being that is entirely needed by you. They are 100% needed by you. They cannot be neglected, otherwise they will die. And it just takes so much fun out of life, especially if you've got postpartum depression. It makes that baby become such a massive responsibility that you realize that I wanted it, but this is hard. And just the prospect of doing that for like another 18 years. For 18 years straight, 19, 20 years, 21 years, depending on how long this kid is going to stay in your house. Depending on how long this kid is going to also develop autonomy while growing up in your house, such that it becomes easier for you as a mother to be a mother, or as a father to be a father. It at some point gets easier because kids learn autonomy, and so it becomes less burdensome. But until you have gotten them to that place of autonomy, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so since women discovered that, oh guys, there's a system, there's a schooling system, some very intelligent people came up with a grade system. They came up with a way to teach children from grade 0 to grade 12. They came up with a way. And these kids get taken to these schools for like many hours a day. And then they come back only later. I have to only worry about picking them up later. That's what's good. So I mean, like, this is free time. I bet when these systems of education started being introduced in countries, parents were like, what? So I get to literally have, 8 hours, 7 hours off. I get 7 hours off. And so they were grateful to give these kids to the system for that time when they're at school. While the mothers in and of themselves were in systems now, the fathers were in systems now. They were working jobs and industry that also was burgeoning. So all these routines that were given to the human race, look, I respect routine. Make no mistake, like, I in and of myself have survived years of solitude and isolation and lots of sorrow, lots of want, lots of lack, because I came up with a system. I came up with a routine. Routine works. It really works to keep a person from just twiddling their fingers and wasting themselves away. It works swimmingly, like a well-oiled machine. So I'm not going to take away from the human race that particular baby. However, it came with some pretty dirty bathwater. The kids were sent off to school and they were trained education A, B, C, D, E, F, G by these systems. It would have been great if your kids were only being taught 1, 2, 3, ABC. But once everybody adopted these systems and it became a societal norm, and so therefore a need in society, it became something that apart from it, we would all fall apart. We wouldn't know how to raise these children. We wouldn't know how to, etc. That's when they started to infiltrate stupid ideologies like filthy politics. That's when they started to try and train your children to become militants for a particular destructive rhetoric. And that is when souls of men started to just plunge into hellfire one after the other, due to helping some pretty filthy politicians that are juicing the system to get children to do their bidding. And so the future gets shaped by training these children very young. A dumb way of thinking. A very dumb way of thinking. And these schooling systems became so convenient for parents that they made a decision to, in increasing numbers, stop homeschooling and just give their kids to the systems. Give their kids to the systems. Give their kids to the systems. And with more and more kids leaving home, I mean, there was a time when there was a healthy balance or a competition between homeschooled kids and kids in the system. But now most kids of the planet are taught by the system, meaning that essentially these system kids far outnumber, and so therefore are a mightier army than homeschooled kids. In South Africa, so much so is that an issue, with there being more children in the main system than in homeschools, that there was a bill proposed some years ago that was resisted. I don't know if at all. There was a town hall did where it is that they were trying to block this bill from being made law because it was just so freaking taboo. It was just ridiculous. Like, guys, what? One woman who was a parent, and I believe she was also a teacher, was also lamenting, right? She was speaking about how it is that this bill basically, listen to this, right? Was trying to introduce... Was trying to force all children in primary from a like literally okay, so with homeschooling, even if you homeschool, your kids' grades, your child's grades, your child's passing and being moved from one grade to another still has to be approved by the state. It still has to be approved by the system. So you can't independently homeschool and then come and be like, hey, my kid is grade 12 level, when there's no proof that this kid was grade 12 level. So at the end of the day, even homeschools are regulated by governments. And yeah, that let that sit banked. They were basically introducing a whole bunch of sexuality into the schooling curriculum. They were trying to get children injected with the serum of 2020. And if at all they did not want to take the injection, they could not essentially participate in the school year in a way that the government would acknowledge they have passed. They were trying to force the injection down the throats of children, even if they were in homeschooling. And in terms of the homeschooling curriculum, they wanted to basically teach some new abortion laws to children 12 years and under, saying that at 12 years and under, you can have an abortion without your parents' consent. And you can have sex without, and you have a right to sex education from as early as 5 years old. And that that children as early as 5 years old need to be encouraged to partake in masturbation so that they can be taught their own sexuality. I'm not even lying. Go and look it up on YouTube. Go and Google it. And when you read this bill, certain people, when they read it, they were like, we cannot let this pass. They were trying to force this down the throats even of, listen to this, homeschooling parents, and said that if you don't embrace this in homeschooling, that's why South Africa is dead. This country is dead. Like, I saw, the Lord showed me it's going to even cease to be a country. It is under severe judgment. Like, imagine, like, even in homeschooled children, they were to be trained from the age of 5. Sexual liberty in the art of masturbation. What does that have to do with literally anything? What does that have to do with anything? Why in the world did they choose age 5? Somebody tell me when Freud's... I want to know when castration anxiety and penis envy happens. In the psychosocial, maybe they based it on that. I don't know. But like, Freud was not Jesus. That's all I'm getting at. Alright, I think that is called the phallic phase, right? Phallic phase of psychosexual development. 3 to 6 makes sense. It's from 3 to 6 years old. It just came to me, but then again, it didn't just come to me. The Holy Spirit is the one that reminded me. The phallic stage, where I did psychology when I was in school. Y'all, but everybody trying to act like I didn't study, okay? Let me just read it to you, alright? Phallic stage, which is the third stage. The first one, I believe, is like the oral phase, then anal, then phallic, okay? Stage 3, 3 to 6 years old, phallic genitalia. This is perhaps the most controversial stage of Freud's psychosexual development. This is the stage in which the child begins to experience pleasure associated with their genitalia. So likely, they had some pagan psychologists counseling the government, telling them that children anyway at the age of around 3 to 6 are curious about genitalia. In the phallic phase of Freud's psychosocial stages of childhood development, there is something called penis envy and castration anxiety. So girls develop a penis envy because they notice that their dads have penises and their boy brothers, like boy siblings, also have it, and then they recognize that they're flat, right? And that causes them jealousy, like an envy, where it is that they are like, but why don't I have the protuberance? Why don't I have that phallus in front of you? Why does dad have this, and why does mom not have it, and why and why does my brother have it and I don't have it? Why do, like, boys, so they experiment with each other? Show me yours and I'll show you mine. That's when they start to experiment with stuff like that at that age. penis envy, castration anxiety, and if they develop a fixation to these stages, some like just a myriad of controversial issues could come up, a myriad of problems could rock up later on in life. So they have got to pass through this phase successfully in order for them to not develop a fixation, the fixation of which might create, like, you know, maybe even things like gender dysphoria. Guys, yeah, I see. Anyway, whatever. But gender dysphoria is not something that Freud ever, you know, postulated, but it doesn't matter because these things have foundations. And so likely a lot of these crazy people on the left with the gender dysphoria ideology or mindset or rhetoric or this thing that they're pontificating likely stems from these foundations, these rudimentary psychologists, these theorists of old. They are taking from them, right? And with boys, there is something called castration anxiety, where it is that because the girl envies them, they make an observation that they've got a protuberance in a way that the girl is kind of flat. They make an observation like on their mothers who bath with their own children, and they see that women or little girls don't have what it is that they have down below, and then they start to get anxious that they're going to lose it. They start to get anxious. So that's castration anxiety, that it's going to get cut off because the girl envies it and the boy has it. So it's the trophy for the day. And again, if you develop like a fixation to castration anxiety, that's like issues that then develop later on in life, producing like psychological problems with emasculation and blah blah whatever. Like really and truly very fascinating theories these when you study them, but really if you take them too seriously you're going to get hurt, because really at the end of the day the truth, the foundation of what it is that we ought to believe comes from the Bible. And it's clear that men must love wives the way that Christ loved the church, and women must respect husbands. Like, it's just that basic. And if you try to justify your misogyny on your castration anxiety, you're not being biblical. And if you also try to justify your desire to coup a man's authority and not submit, you under heaven cannot say that you've got penis envy. What you've got is just an unruly disposition against the God of the universe. You are using psychology to explain away your sinful nature, and on that day you just need to repent or perish. Like, it's that basic. Okay, so I would imagine that that bill was premised around, counseled by psychologists out here in these streets, telling the government that children have a phallic phase from 3 to 6, and so that's when they're really curious about their sexuality, and that's when they start to look at innies and outies, and we need to not resist this. We cannot, what is the word that I'm looking for? We cannot block them from studying their sexuality, because if they develop a fixation to the phallic phase of childhood development, it could create issues in the future for these children that are psychological. So we need to basically create an environment for them in the curriculum, in the education space that, oh guys, yes, and these people, it's just diabolical, it's nefarious. Yeah, we need to create a climate for them where it is that they can explore their sexuality entirely within this phallic phase, that they might be able to move on beautifully from it without developing a fixation, so that we can basically build some pretty beautiful children for the future that don't have insecurities, envies, who basically, yeah, you get my point. Let them experiment. Let them experiment during this stage of psychosocial development, according to Freud. And so it like literally slipped its way. It's like a nefarious grubby pause into South African legislation out here trying to propose a bill to help 5-year-old girls and boys just masturbate in peace. Yeah, of course, like some people came up against it. I don't ever since then know what's happened. But it's such things as these. Like in the schooling system out here, your child is being taught masturbate. Like they're telling your children masturbate. They're trying to make them feel like it's okay to do, when it is actually a shameful act. It's a sin against God. Self-control, a city without walls. That's what it's written in God's word. That a man without self-control is like a city without walls. Anything can break into it. Like you're like a bear, Hlongwane, robbed of your cubs. If you cannot teach your children self-control, to not be experimenting with boys' genitalia, if you cannot be teaching your girl children, if you do not teach your boy children to also not want to look at the, what's in the panties of the girl in school, if you do not cast shame and rightly put biblical understanding in the heart of a child concerning that behavior, fornication is just 5 seconds away. Like, it's that basic. Like, it's literally that basic. And we cannot be embracing children out here having so much sex that at the age of 12, the government has seen it fit to give them abortions in peace without parents knowing. Like, just imagine that. Like, your 12-year-old child having an abortion without you knowing that they're even having sex. I mean, do you know the psychological damage of an abortion? Let alone not even understanding that you've just partook in, birds and bees. Like, what in the world? And even you don't understand what you have just done. You literally almost created a human being, and then you just got rid of it what could be the ramifications of that? And if there is no mother there to basically comfort a child after having gone through such a traumatic experience as an abortion, you're dealing with childhood suicide. And South Africa is already, let's just put that out there, number 2, second to no one but Russia in rates of suicide. Like, it's already one of the most suicidal countries in the world. And it is out here trying to push 12-year-old girls to have abortions without mom or dad knowing anything. Just hold it as a secret by yourself and cry all by yourself in a bed. And when your kid has committed suicide, you then wonder, what happened? Like, I don't even understand what happened with my little girl. Kantung has had an abortion. That was what bill was being proposed in this nefarious country. I told you South Africa is this thing that's straddling the fence. It stands with countries that are enemies of God, but it also stands with countries like America with their woke agenda. South Africa's woke, but it also stands with countries that hate wokeism, like China, like Russia, like, what is this? It stands with like Iran. South Africa is like allied with nations like those. If at all those nations had any say on South African politics, they would disagree altogether. But South Africa's out here waving a Palestinian flag, even though none of the stuff that they do down here would ever fly in Gaza. Like, it never, like, it's just that basic. Like, they are literally straddling the fence, and if you stand for nothing, you will fall for everything. That's why this country's crashing and burning fast and furious. It's literally that basic. Anyway, moving on. I bruised myself over here. That's what in the world under heaven it is. That was proposed just some months ago, maybe a year exactly, is when it is that I heard this on YouTube in South Africa. I don't know if it has since passed. I severely doubt it. If it all, nah, I doubt it. Like, look, not without resistance, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm not even trying to research it, guys. I literally avoid South African news like the plague, because I always get hurt when I'm all up in that grill, because I'm like, why is he, what? Like, I'm such an outlier. Like, I'm such a sore thumb in this country. It's ridiculous. Like, everything, it's politics. Everything that South Africa is has just made a decision to antagonize everything I am when I was born here. Can you spit me out even more? Can you? Whatever do you. Take whatever you want to take and just like really OD on some drugs, South Africa. I don't care. I just don't care at this point. Let's move past that, alright? That bill that it was proposed in this country with those kinds of ludicrous stipulations that by the amazing grace of God there were enough people that were like, hard but no, we're not doing this. Type establishment thing is the very thing that I'm talking about, where it is that ideologies that are politicized in the worst way, trying to wreak a handsome amount of havoc in the purity of children, infiltrate their way into the schooling system. And if at all you create a majority of all of the scholars in your land belonging to the system, you then are going to also pressurize and coerce homeschool kids. That bill was passed to pressurize even homeschooling kids to basically obey. So when you're like a Christian parent, which is what I would have been, okay, and you are out here told by the government that we're not going to pass your kid unless they partake in a sex education at the age of 5 that tells them masturbation is okay. What the heck? They're literally putting you in a corner. They make it impossible for you to be Christian. They are disregarding your rights to a freedom of religion. They are disregarding what it is that any religious text has to say about sex before marriage, especially with minors. Especially within the minor space. Like, yeah, that's what this country is literally trying to pontificate. And as with Lana. Don't know how I was born here. Like, somebody please tell me, give me another flag. Like, please, like, paint me another flag. Create a brand spanking new one and put me on the moon. But I don't want to be in South Africa. Then again, I also don't want to be on the planet. And I'm leaving very soon. So let's just put that out there. I'm leaving. Anyway, whatever. Given that that's like a whole thing, this like just handing over a last will and testament and estate after somebody has passed away your children to the system. My goodness, call it like condemnation much? Like what? RIP vibes, it's giving cadaver. Like, I can't deal. All of this like rest in peace notioning, like motioning of your children into the abyss. I was gawking like flatly into it at some point on some maybe the Lord is gonna make me like Sarah, you know, out here giving birth to a baby all up in my geriatric years. But like at the end of the day, why would the Lord make out of me Usara when Sarah, even if she chooses to be a homeschooling mom, is still subjugated to the tyranny of teaching children the ideology of Satan? Hey, but I gotta leave South Africa. Somebody please get me out of here. Then again, I gotta leave the earth altogether. Anybody got a, like, you know, helicopter? I don't know. Give me aeroplane. Give me spacecraft. Anything. Give me spacesuit. Then I'll find my way from there. Really, I'll pray once I'm in the sky there in the heavens. And I'll be like, Lord, it would be really great if you just kind of, you know, shooted me, catapulted me up in a way like Buzz Lightyear into heaven. Because like really, there's no place left for me in the universe because I've been kicked out of, look, planet Earth over there. It's like a circle in the sky. I see it from your vantage point now. I'm in outer space and I have nowhere to go. They've literally painted me a flag after I made that analogy, they called my bluff, and now I've got this funny looking flag in outer space, and I see the earth is like a circle out there. Can I just come home already? Let me go to heaven. I mean, I don't know what heaven's flag would look like, but I got one, and South Africa has painted it thinking that it ain't jack. I'm going to heaven because your kids have got larynxes that sound like AI bots. Not doing it. There's nothing here that is salvageable. I'm sorry, everything is deadbeat and zombified. Konke kuhlokafetse. Hauna ntwe phelang. Hey guys, it's a zombie apocalypse. I apologize. We're not doing this. Impa, it appears we are. If at all, parents have got a history of just throwing abantwana babo to the system to be reared there, nannied there, taken care of. If they've given over their responsibilities as parents to train children and instruct them in the way that they should go over to schooling, then I guess we're all in a little bit of a bad bunch, are we not? If you look as well at the fact that once these parents have thrown, okay, so first they threw their children into the schooling system, discovered it was a free babysitter. Well, not free, it's actually paid, but it's a babysitter. They discovered that it's a babysitter for a couple of hours a day. Yeah, they then, upon these children getting back home, and these women and men also in and of themselves being exhausted at the end of the day, and so being too tired to now be a real parent to these kids, they could not then supplement what under heaven happened in the school. They can't supplement it. First of all, they're not asking children what happened today in school that you imagine is of concern. Anything that you feel as if though perhaps might be different from what I'm teaching you at home. No extra education, no 1 hour too, that you are awarding children just to basically infiltrate and instill whatever it is that is your core ideology. Nothing is a beeping radar that's just going off in the head and the heart of a child in school when they're being taught rubbish. When these children are being taught rubbish, nothing is picking up this bleep on their radar so they can take it home and be like, Mom, this is what I learned at school. So that the mother can squeeze it out, so they can crush it, maybe change schools, I don't know. All they do is just basically say, do your homework and make sure it's done. That's all they monitor. Do your homework, make sure it's done. But as for actually gauge the politics of the school, what was said, what was done, what ideology was being proliferated by other children, what other kids were trying to induct your own child into, checking on that, ain't nobody out there doing it. And I personally can vouch for how I was raised by teachers. In other words, they were the only adults out here telling me, bank left, bank right, walk straight, walk back, single file, keep quiet. This is how I'm going to judge you, bad child, for not doing homework. Teachers were the only ones instilling discipline in my life. At home, all that I guess wasn't subjugated to tyranny of was being yelled at if I didn't wash the dishes, all that jazz, but actually train an ideology, a rhetoric. Goodness gracious, guys, if you don't give a child an ideology, somebody's going to give it to them. Children have got to have ideologies. You cannot say that they're too young to be politicized or given a dogma. Children have got to be given a dogma, or one will be given them. They've got to be given a dogma, or one will be entrenched, one way or another. Understand, this liberal movement is a dogma, because everybody that agrees against it is persecuted. If at all a person cannot be free to not choose something, it's dogmatic. And that's exactly what's going on in the world right now. So you either entrench your dogma into your child, or somebody else is going to do it. Somebody gotta have something to stand for. And a lot of what is being stood for today is absolutely nothing. It's hollow, naught and ash, but nothing is still a dogma. Because somebody that rocks up with something in the presence of nothing is going to be considered different, anomalous, a threat to peace, and so worthy of being eliminated. That's what I'm getting at. And your children are being knocked into the kingdom of darkness on the daily because of parents that imagine teachers or schools are going to teach them a dogma. Except teachers are not, like I said, psychiatrists. They're not doctors that belong to a pediatric elective in their medical degrees. They're just teaching children 1, 2, 3, ABC. However, in the 1, 2, 3, ABC, every so often there are subjects in the school that are retraining your children how to think. There are facts that are being changed on the daily to be truth, and on top of that, these kids belong to a generation of other kids whose parents do not believe in what you believe in. And just to fit in, seeing as children are so impressionable, they will gravitate away from your thing that you're doing or you're hoping to proliferate in favor of that evil thing. And so we are dealing with millennials who have, like I said, bombed creches. We're dealing with millennial parents that are out here just allowing, like they're literally just allowing this licentious generation of extremely sexually charged young men and women that are violently obsessed with themselves on social media, producing videos that, if at all you produced that kind of video in 1995, 2003, and your mother done found it on Facebook, you are done for. You are done for. Some of the videos that these kids are uploading with the lack of clothing that is on their bodies, if at all we as millennials were to be found doing that anywhere by parents or by older brothers, we would get a talking to, maybe even a whooping. A whooping. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Yet, however, now I don't even know how TikTok is as gargantuan as it is. It is mammoth, with people's daughters that are under the age of 18, albeit claiming to be 18 and up, literally doing like a diet version of OnlyFans on TikTok, just like a diet OnlyFans. Seeing as on TikTok, I don't believe anyway, unlike Twitter where people show full frontals. Anyway, whatever, I don't believe TikTok allows nudity to the nth degree. They're 5 seconds away from doing OnlyFans, is that basic, and these kids are being salivated after by these like incredible perverts all across the planet, and they're somebody's daughters and sons, and there is no way that your daughter can be so world famous and you not know as a mom. There is no way that your daughter's got 2 million followers on TikTok and you don't know. It's impossible. It's social media. Your kid, if at all they end up getting 2 million views, not views, followers on TikTok, is going to be stitched on TikTok. They're going to be clipped on YouTube. They're going to be in compilations all over the show. That you, if at all you use social media, which you highly likely do, especially if you're a millennial, to basically just pass the day and also to do your own job, you will inevitably come across a viral video. If anything, when you go on the landing page of YouTube, if you have not logged into your own account, it always publishes viral videos that you want nothing to do with. Only you train the algorithm what to recommend to you, but before you have trained it, it'll just give you whatever it is that everybody's doing. And so if your kid is that trending rando, that's what's good, then you are inevitably going to happen upon it as a parent. And if it is not you that is happening upon it, it is the whole neighborhood, because who does not like to gossip, especially among women? Yeah. Have you seen her child? She's busy gyrating on TikTok. Have you? All over the show. So this information is going to return to the mother's ears, but that's just an uncomfortable thing. Parents don't want their kids poor, at least I would imagine, largely. They don't want their kids poor. And so when your 16, 17-year-old child is out here making like a whole bunch of money from very licentious content on social media, that's when these parents then shut up. They go, mom. They keep quiet. They let their kids basically commence a career because it's very hard to break it into these industries out here. Also, there is an epidemic of basically emancipation by these children from their parents because parents are saying no. Why would a kid want to be emancipated from a good parent, a good mom, a good dad? It is because they imagine that it is okay for them to not have their parents and have friends, for them to not have their parents and have each other, have society that loves them, have a social media following that loves them. They have no regard for what the parents feel, precisely because their parents basically threw them to sharks and say, raise my child. If at all the world was your kid's parent, what under heaven incentive does your kid that's now blown up on TikTok and you disagree with all of their buddicks on social media? If you disagree, it does not matter because you taught your child extra family that is not you. And so when you don't approve, they just break away from you. They just break away. So it's one of two things that happen with the social media issue. It is either that parents approve because kids are making money, or parents don't approve and so kids break away. And these kids break away because parents have been throwing these kids to the system to raise them. And so now they more recognize a parent out of the system than they do out of their mums and dads. And it is therefore not so much of a loss, nothing to write home about, really, when their mothers and fathers are literally trying to pull them back from the darkness. So millennials, I can't say this enough, you've literally gone on right ahead and thrown like a whole bomb into the Gen Alpha creches. Maybe even a couple of them in Gen Z creches. And unless these kids wake up by themselves, they're essentially screwed. It's literally over before it started. Why? Because their parents were dumb. Their parents were like my generation that refused for people like me to have children and therefore show all of y'all an example of what parenting actually looks like. Yeah, you refused me that opportunity. And then you went on right ahead and threw your children to the public schooling system, maybe even private schooling system, and expected teachers to do what you were supposed to do. Teachers taught ABC 1, 2, 3 according to the government's curriculum. That's what they were supposed to do. They went to school to employ that knowledge. That's all that they were supposed to do. Yours was to double check basically against your own dogma, your own rhetoric in the house. If at all, once the kid comes back home from school, what's going on? Then there are those that imagine that this is a big enough epidemic, it's a big enough challenge, an issue, a problem in my child's life that I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to homeschool my own kids. Yeah, the ones who homeschool are a small number. They're still vastly outnumbered. But look at how it is that the system has so flourished and grown. It has become so mainstream and so widely accepted that it is now literally pompous enough to all up in everybody's grill. How arrogant are you? Dictate now to even homeschooling parents what to entrench as a dogma in their children. Out here trying to make 5-year-olds masturbate. Or not be passed, because at the end of the day, you can teach your child how to do logarithms at the age of 3, but I get to determine if at all they move from one grade to the next as the government. And if you don't basically embrace this here as what it is that I say is the dogma, not dogma, but the curriculum, you can't pass your logarithmic spitting like 2-year-old. You can't pass them. Even if they're like a whole prodigy, they're like a whole genius. It doesn't matter because I make the rules. I'm Frank Sinatra. And guess what, little homeschooling mama? I'm doing it my way. Proper. South Africa's like Raccoon City. This country's like Raccoon City, I promise you. In Resident Evil, it is an experimental hub. I don't know what's going on here, but we are like we're like the first experiment in Africa to belong to the New World Order. I'm just saying. This country's just rubbish. I'm throwing it out. It's like a dirty sneaker. It smells. But this nonsense in South Africa, and also this nonsense that I'm making an observation of in the planet, has got me being like, okay, fine. So what if I am Sarah, okay, with Abraham all up in my grill, after having a baby as a geriatric? Yeah, I mean, like, God does miracles, but like, would he want to? That's my question. Would he want to employ that miracle in my particular ecosystem? Would he? Why would the Lord want me to be out here raising children up in the admonition of the Lord, forced a curriculum down my throat by a South African apostate government, the government of which is pro-Palestine? Let's just put that out there. They hate Israel. And then over and above hating Israel, they are just hating my Christian Judeo principles that I am trying to instill in my babies, because my babies now gotta masturbate at 5 and 7, respectively. We're not doing this. Like, we're not doing this. Like, yo, even if I were to get a baby, like, I need them. I want them. I love children. Cuddling this little Gen Beta coming from millennial grandmama mama. Oh, I'm a grandmama mama. Guys, I'm a grandmama mama. I'm a grandmama mama. I'm out here being 42 years old with my first child. Grandmama mama. Grandmama mama. Here it is that a millennial is giving birth to Gen Beta. When Gen Alpha kids are currently, like I said, their larynxes and vocal cords, artificial intelligence voices, like there is absolutely not much going on over there. Not much. And the blame is to be shifted on their millennial and Gen Z parents who have increasingly become ungodly. They have walked in rituals instead of a lifestyle, and in so doing such a thing as that, have imagined that this whole do what thou wilt, for that is the whole of the law mindset of the earth is a-okay. And also put these babies like little, dinosaurs, I don't know, like vertebrates with like a bent neck in iPads from the time they're like 2 years old. They have made sure that these children who are now being raised by teachers have caused teachers, oh, poor little souls, these poor souls that are not psychiatrists, that deal with pediatrics, or doctors that are dealing with pediatrics, but they're just teachers who have been trained how to teach children, and really that's it. Yeah, they're walking out in their drones because these alpha kids are violent. They're feral. Like cats you find that out here scratch at you hissing, even though you're trying to rescue them and make them clean. Chop off their grubby nails and put them in your house in a small, little, cute, very quaint, cushy pillow that they will sleep in instead of in the wilderness, but they out here hissing at you, growling at you, refusing to be touched by you, because like I said, they're feral. These Gen Alpha kids are feral, and so if they're feral, what's going to become of Gen Beta? Feral kids are hard to take in a teacher's stride, because that feral, like, what makes a cat feral? Let's talk about a cat, because I have a cat. What makes a cat feral? Please, somebody tell me. It is the fact that they're growing up in the wild, for crying out loud. But there are people who go on right ahead and take feral kittens, put them in their houses, and do what? Tame them. Teach them what? Human beings. Teach them how to live among who? People. Teach them to do what? Use the kitty litter. instead of insisting on going outside and putting their grubby paws in that soil. They teach cats to suddenly be content in the presence of human beings and not hide in a little corner in a new house. So you grab a hissing cat and you make it this like cute little thing that's on its belly every single time you walk into the room because it just loves you for being there. Who did that to the feral cat? A human being. A human being took a feral cat hissing and said, no, I'm sorry, you're gonna sit in the house first and foremost. You don't get to scratch my counter, neither my fingers. We're not doing that. And you're going to use the kitty litter. You're gonna use it. You're gonna use it. You're gonna use it until the cat thinks it's cute to honor you. So I mean, really, just like training your dogs and your cats, why are your kids feral exactly? It's because you haven't trained them. You go and you grab dogs and you teach them how to sit, and yet you can't teach a kid how to sit in class when a teacher says sit proper. Like if at all you've taught a dog sit, that word, if at all somebody says sit Spotty, it'll sit at the sound of the word sit, especially if you've taught Spotty to sit when any human being tells it to sit and not just the owner itself. That cat or that dog will sit, and these kids ought to be taught how to respect teachers, listen to them, because their parents know. And sorry, these kids know that if at all they were to basically dishonor their own parents in this ecosystem, Gushubile, it's over. They're grounded. Never mind being grounded, they might even get a whip in, like a little bit of a whip. The rod. Don't spare the child the rod. That's what the Bible says. If your kids are feral at birth, born dead in trespasses and sins and insolence that their parents conceived them, and that all their righteous works are like filthy rags, what in the world tames them? Teach a child in the way that they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart from it. It's you. It's parents. The responsibility of training children up is not on pastors. It is not on, teachers. It is on parents. Organized religion has spoiled Christian parents into thinking they can delegate their responsibility of teaching a child godliness to Sunday school, something that happens between like once a week, children of which often have a short attention span. You are the one, as the lead of your household, that is supposed to train your child the scriptures, to train your child godliness, train your child Jesus, and Sunday school is like a supplement. It's like dessert at the end of a full meal. It is not the main course. It is supplementary. At best, it is a cherry on top. At least, it is a dessert. But it is not the main course. That is Sunday school. Because a lot of times, when you send these kids to Sunday school, they're going to be getting taught Noah's Ark, the story of Jonah being swallowed by a fishy. Rarely ever are they going to touch on the fact that, look, you're not that great, okay? Because the human heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. So there is really no end as to what wickedness you can achieve. Therefore, you need to watch that heart of yours. Ain't no Sunday school teacher gonna be out here telling a child that. You have got to teach your children true doctrine so they can be solid, and find the story of Noah cute, adorable, lovely to watch and listen to, but also understand the reason why Noah even had to be put in that boat, in that ark. It's because the thoughts and intentions of mankind were evil continually, and there was nothing but violence filling the earth, and that the last days are going to be like it was in the days of Noah. They need to understand just the travesty of wickedness in the days of Noah that caused a holy God to kill the whole world, except for 8 people. The danger of that whole scenario must be thoroughly comprehended in the heart of a child, that the right requisite amount of fear in their hearts might be employed for God. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One brings understanding. So Sunday school is going to give a very fluffy version of Noah's story, very fluffy version of Jonah's story, the Jonah story of which displays what happens when you disobey God, displays what happens when a man decides he can run away from God. God is sovereign. You don't get to say no to him. He can judge you. He can swallow you and put you in the heart of the earth. And so bad was Jonah's state as he was in the heart of the earth that it was described as similar to the death of Jesus and his 3 days in the heart of the earth too. That's what it is. Like that is what is it? It's a typology. The Jonah being in the heart of the fishy was used as a typology to describe Christ in the heart of the earth. And what happened with Christ being at the heart of the earth? He was initially killed. Like the guy was scourged. He was murdered. And then he went to set the captives free, prisoners, in the center of the earth. And the Jonah story is a typology of that whole thing. And then went out to preach to Nineveh thereafter. It's actually quite a dire story. It's one that displays just what in the world it is that the Lord does in order to bring people to himself. It's really quite serious. But your kids are just seeing it as this cute little story of fishing around gobbling a person. Like, you gotta give the true impact of God's heart to children that they might understand his attributes. Fear him, however, with love. Do you know what I'm saying? They need to be taught God's mercy, however, right next to God's judgment. So who's going to teach your kids that? Because ain't no Sunday school quite hitting the mark. I'm sorry. I've been a Sunday school teacher. I know how fluffy it is. I know. But nah, you are here trusting organized religion to teach your children. Organized religion to teach your children godliness. And you are trusting the organized schooling system to teach your children A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, and basically political ideology. Dogmas that are secular in nature, that have got nothing to do with the Bible you believe in. Who in the world is going to entrench those principles? Homeschooling parents got it really good, but it was possible to do that or inspire that even in parents who take their children to school insofar as they were prepared to put in the time to basically recalibrate the scales that they tried to shift out of whack in school when they were there during the day. But a lot of millennial parents ain't got none such discipline in their core because they don't even understand what it's like to walk in biblical Christianity. Millennials are a generation that is living, I guess, in the last days in the great apostasy, where most of them have abandoned entirely their dads and their moms' religion. They have abandoned their dads and their moms' Christianity. And so in so abandoning it, absolutely have got no time to be explaining, Krensha, what was the seriousness and the dire nature of what happened over there in the days of Noah. Exactly. Over and above there being like a cute little boat with like a whole bunch of animals in it, looking all like, child story. Over and above that childhood story, over and above that nursery rhyme, what in the world was the true dire state of the earth at the time? You gotta do that. Your children have got to be basically bubble bursters and party poopers at Sunday school. Out here putting even Sunday school teachers to shame by explaining the fact that the days of Noah were a dire time where the thoughts and intentions of man were evil continually, and the men on the earth were full of violence. They were full of violence, and the earth was no longer habitable or sustainable in the sight of God, and so he had to just kill them all. Let your kid be that kid that's going to make a Sunday school teacher realize that, Granshap, why did you even take on a job as a Sunday school teacher when you can't even teach? You just decided that you want to serve in Sunday school because it looks really cute. You've never even studied the scriptures, you don't understand them, and yet you want to come and teach some children. You want to teach the most impressionable people on the earth. The kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. And with you living a fornicating lifestyle, with you just having this fluffy Christianity where you're so shallow, you lack humility in the worst way. You in and of yourself are not bearing fruit, but you're a Sunday school teacher. You're a Sunday school teacher. Let a kid then evangelize you because their parents are that responsible. Yeah. I found Sunday school quite a sham. It was laughable, but then again, I'm in South Africa. So of course, right now the churches in this country are laughable. Just entirely. Millennials have been handing children over to be taught by the system, but so too have all other generations. But the difference now, the disquieting matter presently, is the fact that, albeit having taught these children to do what they're doing, albeit having sent their children away to what appears to be boarding school to be taught by other human beings, they don't realize at what generation and at what pivotal time in history they threw them to the system. They threw children into the system during a time when the system was preparing the mark of the beast system, the Antichrist system. The millennials threw their children to this teaching system during a time when it was so rebellious against God that Gen Alphas were essentially screwed. This thing that parents have been doing, abdicating and derelicting their responsibility to raise children to the system, to teachers, have thrown some pretty irreverent and undisciplined children to teachers, causing these teachers to walk out of schools unable to teach these unruly kids because parents have just abdicated their responsibility, their parenting roles. They've abdicated them. They've derelicted their duties as parents in favor of teachers raising them. Something that used to work when things were a little bit better, but things are not that good anymore. And so kids are just absolutely feral because their parents have not even tamed them at home. And so teachers are quitting jobs. Therefore, really and truly, God could perform a miracle in my belly and give me an Isaac in my geriatric millennial years. Very well. But why would he? Why would he? What is the point of a husband rocking up any minute now and putting a baby in my stomach? What's the point? Indeed, I don't deny I could fall pregnant at like 43. That's when my little sister was born to my mom. It's genetic, this whole geriatric pregnancy thing. It runs swimmingly in my family. It is still entirely feasible, but why is it worth it? Why should I give birth to a Gen Beta baby when Gen Alpha kids are basically AI robots walking around? What is the point? Because you literally broke Gen Zs, but they were able to like limp around in a way that Gen Alpha are crawling. They're not even limping, crawling. So what is going to become of Gen Beta? What? I want children, but I can't. Like, not right. Like, this here is not sustainable. The earth is over. Like, I apologize. Like, I'm going home, guys. There is nothing left. There's no earth. You have literally employed a scorched earth policy in schools, millennials. You have made Gen Alpha a scorched earth. You don't see it yet. But if the Lord does not rapture the body of Christ as a now, those Gen Alpha kids, you're going to see what in the world you did to them. They're still too young right now for you to see the real effects of what you've done to them. Too young. The oldest Gen Alpha, I believe, is 13 years old today. Yeah. Wait till they become teenagers. If you think Gen Zs are extreme, racy, and licentious, wait till you see what under heaven Gen Alpha are gonna do. Not Gen Alpha, sorry, Gen Beta. Yeah, Gen Alpha. Wait until you see how much worse even Gen Beta is gonna be. It's already nasty, it's over. And like I said, when I first started out in my first part, that this whole phenomenon that I'm speaking about right now, that I'm communicating on the rooftops right now, if it were to continue, literally every last Gen Beta would take the mark of the beast. Because if I were to give birth to a Gen Beta baby now, what in the world under heaven is going to motivate that individual to stick to Jesus in a world that absolutely hates their God? There is no incentive to be godly. It is becoming increasingly disincentivized to choose Jesus. And the Lord is not going to let that continue to be a concern, because children are going to be set up for failure from the very big get-go. It'll be over for them before it even starts. They will be resisted before they can even get saved. Just like those Palestinians who want to turn to Christ, but it's not safe. Your children are going to want God, but it's not going to be safe. And while the Lord has got power, because he's a miracle worker, to save them anyway, why would he want them to live in a world that is so hostile against him? When the gospel is being shut out of every country, when nobody wants true biblical Christianity anywhere, then fine, you're kicking God out, let him then basically judge it until he can come back, because it's his. He gets to run here. He is God. You can't say it's the pottery, what have you done to the potter? Like, proper, you are pompous in so thinking such a thing as that. You are pompous to imagine you can tell the potter when saying, please, I don't like what you've done. If you don't want to worship your God, get out. It's that basic. And that's exactly what God is going to show you. That if you don't want to worship me, you don't get to water down children that get born, continuing to send them to hell with me being kicked out of the earth I made for you. The meek are the ones that will inherit the earth and delight themselves in abundant peace. My Christians, my believers, my remnant Jews, my elect Jews are the only ones that get to inherit the earth. And so, if you want to kick them out or make their lives a living nightmare on an earth that I made for them, you go! And that's what the millennial reign of Jesus Christ is about. It's a restoration of basically how things ought to be. It's organized religion, however, in a responsible state. It is how it is that you were supposed to do it as the human race, but failed. It is a new example, and we're going there. And I can't wait to go there. I feel exhausted, I'm exasperated. But until such time that we get taken out, I will continue to speak these things. I can't possibly have children, because why would I want to? Because I would be giving birth to Gen Beta babies, and upon giving birth to them, essentially cause the ostracization and absolute hard knock persecution, therefore the marginalization of my sons and daughters. I would cause my children a severity of sorrow in a world that hates God. But I would have been that staunch parent that taught my kid the dogma that they needed to be taught from very early. And if my kid holds on to Jesus and does not let go, then my kid is going to end up severely abused in school, just bullied. And if I don't even take my kid to school, it doesn't matter. At some point they have to grow up and work a job, don't they? They're going to struggle in the office. They're going to struggle. Like, literally, there is no future for Gen Beta, especially for godly Gen Betas. There's no future. Everybody's going to take the mark of the beast in that generation. If the Lord does not rapture the body of Christ now, where some Gen Zs are embracing the gospel, and Gen Alphas, a lot of them are still so innocent that they will likely just be accepted by God anyway. That's what's going on with them. When the world is basically screwed absent of divine intervention, then I guess divine intervention is what is needed, is it not? Y'all cannot trust yourselves anymore because you threw children away. Like I said, millennials, you literally bombed entire creches. You done did that. You are just dropping a nuke in a kindergarten. You did it. And you want to act as if though you did not do that to Gen Z and Alpha. And then you forced a woman that wanted to raise them better to have a Gen Beta baby. Yo, askis. Millennials, you will be the last generation to devastate the youth. The Lord is going to rescue these Gen Alphas and Betas and Zs through the tribulation, through the rapture. I already explained to you the child armies that are coming in the tribulation. They're going to come and lamp-based living daylights out of you. They're going to become cannibals. They're going to be so unruly and mistakenly ominous. And the Lord will rescue them all for himself, those who are alive at the end, however, of the tribulation at his second coming. That's another video that I've already done and I've explained it. Please go check it out if you have any desire to do such a thing as that. But seeing as I'm going home, ultimately people are going to listen to me like a dead celebrity out here selling a whole bunch of albums. But before then, I'm going to be underestimated and treated like a whole bunch of trash. Then again, you did try to make me give birth to Gen Beta, so why wouldn't you treat me like trash when all your kids are Gen Alpha and Gen Zs? It's because I'm always the sore thumb, am I not? I'm the thing that's different. So different that I'm out here giving birth to Gen Beta babies as a millennial. You've made me a grandmama, mama. I'm not doing it. Even if I wanted to, why would God wanna? Why? Ain't no need to go waste my womb, is there? No need. No need to go and waste all of my efforts in trying to raise a child up in the way that they should go, guys. No need, no need. Because my kid is going to be persecuted like it's the days of Nero and they're Christians out here getting mauled away by lions at the Colosseum. I'm not trying to bring any child into any of that. I'm not doing it. I'm signing out in Christ's name, Cranky. I hope you've been edified. Millennials, you who bomb creches, I hope you've been reached. Signing out in Christ's name, bye.